Hi everybody, I wanted to talk about crystallization today, and Gurdjieff discusses this a lot. We're trying to crystallize ourselves through all these processes that Gurdjieff's putting us through with these books, and that we're working. He's not putting them through us, we're putting ourselves through it, but he's giving us the data to do this. And I wanted to start with a quote from All and Everything, page 26. So Gurdjieff's writing, and this is Beelzebub talking. Well, it's Gurdjieff talking. I already feel that in your false, but according to real consciousness, they are beginning to be agitated like blinded flies, all the chief data transmitted to you by heredity, which always and in everything at least engenders in you the impulse, nevertheless extremely good, of curiosity. And that's what we need to get going on this path. We need to be curious enough to think there's more to life than mainstream life people, the Joe blogs that go about and have no interest in spirituality. So we've got to have that curiosity first, that need. And he continues, I'm very pleased with the arising of this curiosity, even though only in your false consciousness, as I already know from experience that this impulse unworthy of man can sometimes even pass from this consciousness into one's nature and become a worthy impulse. The impulse of the desire for knowledge, which in its turn assists the better perception and even the closer understanding of the essence of any object on which, as it sometimes happens, the attention of a contemporary man might be concentrated. And we're the contemporary men and women that are trying to develop ourselves. And he talks a lot about how we need to crystallize ourselves through doing all the exercises that he says in his book, so that we can attune to the cosmic harmonious development of the universe and be a part of it. And he talks about crystallization in All and Everything. And he says on page 26, thanks to free, definite, peculiar data, which was crystallized in my entirety during various periods of my preparatory age, I am really unique. And he was quite unique, wasn't he, Gurdjieff? There's not many men like him. And we're trying to establish ourselves so we can be unique in this work. We take our own path, but we've got the teachers here to help us go forward, but we have to do it at our own pace and in our own style in a way. But Gurdjieff's given us various exercises, and other people are, it's not just Gurdjieff. And he goes on to say on page 286, the steady deterioration of the degree of crystallization of data engendering the sane logical mentation which ought to be present in the common presences of your favourites. And, he's reminding us that most people, as we know, go about in this lunatic asylum not using any common sense, not using their conscience, and definitely not awake, where we're trying to develop ourselves so that we are awake and we're using our conscience. And then that way we can start working on ourselves to crystallize our insides. But you can do it wrongly. He does warn about that. You can crystallize in the wrong way, and then you have to break it all down again and start again. And also when we're doing this work, where we're doing our self-remembering, our self-observations and such like, we're unprogramming ourselves from the programs that we've been put into by our peers, the programs that are mainstream, I'm calling it today, of just going about your life with no care about how to be part of the universe, or not spiritually developed, or maybe it is, but it's in their way, where we know there's something more. And as I was saying in that first quote, we have that curiosity to go forward and become something. And he says in All and Everything, page 368, in the subconsciousness of people, there are crystallized and are always present the data manifested from above, for engendering in them the divine impulse of genuine conscience. So it's like a seed in all of us, an embryo in all of us. And it's how we develop as we grow up, as to whether we listen to it or not. And we can come back to it later in life when we suddenly awaken again to wanting to develop and change and become a better man, a real woman. So that seed's there for everybody, every human being. And, maybe they won't do it in this life, maybe they'll do it in another life, but we're going to try and do it in this life, just in case we don't get the chance in another life. And he says in All and Everything, page 1232, for this, it is first of all necessary consciously to crystallize in yourselves data for engendering in your common presences a constant, unquenchable impulse of desire for such a crossing, because this is a crossing that we're doing. We're going from being, you know, an asleep person to becoming an awake person, and we need to do that through all the exercises, and then that will start crystallizing in us and programming in us the right way of doing this. And that crystallization, we want to be a nice, clean, pretty quartz. I've got one here, a nice bit of citrine. You know, we're trying to develop this in ourselves. Quartz and crystals, they carry a lot of data inside them. Don't really understand what crystals are, do we? But, or the scientists, but you know, they're learning from them. We know they're in our phones and in the radios because it holds all this data and can transmit data across. So we're trying to become a crystalline being so that we can hold all inside us all these ways of developing ourselves and becoming a pure being, you know, like a nice pure bit of quartz. And he says, he talks to Ouspensky about this, and Ouspensky says in Search for the Miraculous, page 32, fusion, inner unity, is obtained by means of friction, by the struggle between yes and no in a man. And I've said before about the pendulum, yes and yes, no, we want to be in the middle, we want to be the balanced person. Ouspensky continues, if a struggle begins in him, and particularly if there is a definite line in this struggle, then gradually permanent traits begin to form in themselves. He begins to crystallize. But crystallization is possible on a right foundation, and it is possible on a wrong foundation. So that warning coming again, like I said to you before, you know, we can crystallize either way. People can crystallize into negative, dangerous, homicidal, I don't know, you know, like they crystallize when they're full of depression, they're dulling themselves. We want to try and do it in an uplifting way. We want to be attached to the solar power that's coming to us. You know, we want to be lit up like the sun. We want to shine forth. And to do that, we need to be crystallized, and a nice, beautiful crystal it is. Ouspensky continues on page 193 in Search for the Miraculous. The third stage in the work of the human organism begins when man creates in himself a second conscious volitional shock at the point Mi-12. So we've got the octave, when the transformation or transmutation of these hydrogens into higher hydrogens begin in him. And that's what we're doing with this crystallization process. We're making the higher hydrogens vibrate in us. The second stage and the beginning of the third stage refer to the life and functions of man number 4. A fairly considerable period of transmutation and crystallization is needed for the transition of man number 4 to the level of man number 5. High five. So we're trying to attend to this. And he goes on page 256. The whole of the physical body, all its cells are, so to speak, permeated by emanations of the matter C12. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. And when they have become sufficiently saturated, the matter of C12 begins to crystallize. The crystallization of this matter constitutes the formation of the astral body. And we need these extra bodies so that we can go forth. And I'm going to do a long quote now from Views from the Real World, page 215. You know, because he's talking about Ouspensky, obviously we're trying to work on ourselves and develop ourselves. We're following that octave up so that we're getting to that part where we can start crystallizing ourselves. We've got all the beginnings as we learn the way, and we start using it and doing it. And then as it goes higher and higher and we're doing it more and using it more, we become attuned, and it just hopefully begins to become natural to us to be like this. But from Views from the Real World, when the solution is saturated, the salt no longer dissolves and the crystals remain at the bottom. So we're getting rid of all the salt in us. It is the same with the human organism. Even if materials which are required for the formation of a soul are being constantly produced in the organism, they are dispersed and dissolved in it. I don't know if you caught my sneezing then. I tried to pause it, but I don't know if it worked. Right, so it is the same with the human organism. Even if materials which are required for the formation of a soul are being constantly produced in the organism, they are dispersed and dissolved in it. There must be a surfeit of such materials in the organism. Only then is crystallization possible. The material crystallized after such a surfeit takes the form of a man's physical body, is a copy of it, and may be separated from the physical body. Each body has a different life, and each is subject to different orders of laws. And this is why we need to study the orders of laws. You know, they're all in Ospence's books in charts, or you can read about them in Maurice Nicole's books, and obviously the Gurdjieff writings. So each body has a different life, and each is subject to different orders of laws. The new or second body is called the astral body. In relation to the physical body, it is what is called the soul. We must explain that there can be several categories of souls, but that only one of them can truly be called by this word. A soul is acquired in the course of life. If a man has begun to accumulate these substances but dies before they have crystallized, then simultaneously with the death of the physical body, these substances also disintegrate and become dispersed. So we're trying to develop that soul. I've never heard him talk about different souls before. Maybe people might have something to say about that in the comments. You know, I thought it was just the one soul that we were trying to develop, and develop it in the right way so that we become genuine, real I, and have the soul connected to the higher centers, which then connect to the higher beings, and so forth. It's all a order. We have to follow the order to do it. Can't skip a few steps. So everybody, keep on crystallizing yourselves. Perhaps get some crystals. I always carry crystals with me. I love my crystals. And see you next time. Peace and out.